Hello there, people. Anybody who might be out there. I thought I'd stream for a few hours, just in case anybody out there has got a question or something along those lines. Ooh, and let's see here. I have heard of Hyper Rogue, yeah. I've never played it. It might be a fun thing to play on stream. I've seen just sort of videos of it or whatever. And I do like roguelikes. My wife just came home yelling throughout the house, "Who wants a present?" I think she got some prizes at Target for the boys. How y'all doing today? I'm excited to see somebody follow because I set up Streamlabs. So, hey, look at that. Look, it's working. Thanks for the follow, more Veer. More, I don't know what that means. How do I say that name? Notice that I turned off the sound. More weir. I can deal. Yeah, that's good. So there's no like auditory distraction. The other thing I want to do, I think, is reorganize this kind of mess of windows and stuff.
Which one are we gonna play first?
Hey guys, I'm streaming right now, so you guys should take that out of the room. How about that? Good God. Not excited for syllabus week to be over. I am not ready for real school to start. Okay, so what classes are you taking? Wait, is this showing up? See, I put a little thinger. I don't know why it looks so unsharp. Not sure. Motors, turbines, and fluids. A bunch of ME junior level classes. Gotcha. Oh, am I supposed to know who you are? Because I don't. But that's okay if you want to be like oh, okay. Gotcha. I know who you are, Andrew. Hello. So it takes an entire week to do syllabus, huh? That's usually a 5-minute affair. Maybe more like 15-minute affair in my classes. I'm sorry about the children. They are very excited about something or other. How's online working out for you? More weird. It's not so bad. That's good. When am I done streaming? I don't know. I was thinking of streaming for a few hours. But you know what? If you want to grab it and take it out of the room, you can. Without issue. And hey, Yoshi, can you close the door for me on your way out? Oh yeah. yeah. I bet that is really strange, huh? Well, if a math question ever does come up more weird, I'm here for you. You know that. You knew that already. You knew that already. Now what we got here is a Project Euler problem, which I'm wanting to tackle. And I thought about it, and what I realized, like a key thing about this problem is that I think there is a kind of a tricky trick that you can do. So I can just use this down here. For example, there is a special collection of numbers, like 1 over, so like a good example is 1 over 9. And I need to put floats in to make sure that Python outputs a float. But look at that number, 0.111111111. And it's not exactly a coincidence, is it, that 3 divided by 9.0 is 0.33333333. Okay. So is there anything that has other kinds of behavior? For example, and there's 1 over 99.0. So it's 0.010101010101. Ignore the 2 on the end because that's floating point arithmetic for you. So then if I wanted 23 over 99, or what would I get if I compute 23 over 99? I get 0.2323232323. You graduated with a master's last year. Now you're not sure what to do. Have you thought about going further in grad school, or are you interested in going into like getting a real job? Because there's always that option. It's hard to know what to do, I think, in this climate in particular. And if I add more 9s, I can get patterns that look like this. Right? So, like, it seems like the length of the repeating portion of these decimals, of these reciprocals, is going to be determined by like how, like, can we rewrite, for example, 1/6 or 1/7 or 1/9 as a quotient of some integer over a string of 9s. I did think about going for a PhD, but I don't know what sort of research problem I'd be looking into. And my degree classification isn't that great, so most universities probably wouldn't accept me, I think. Does degree classification, I'm not totally sure what degree classification means in this context. Does that refer to like how well you did while you were doing your degree and stuff like that? I mean, grades are definitely a part of getting into grad school, no question. But my own subjective opinion, which is not totally 100% well informed, but I'm just going to put it out there, is that perhaps the most important thing that you have to getting into grad school is probably letters of recommendation from your professors. Like, the better those letters are, I think the more you can overcome stuff like grades or not doing so well in like the GRE or something or whatever. Peanut, chill. Like a well crafted letter from somebody who knows you really well and who's also got some respect probably among the admissions people at the school that you're interested in, I think goes a very long way. This is why, yeah, this is why, like, the number one piece of advice that I would like to give to my own children when they get into college is to make sure that they are building relationships, not just with their fellow classmates, of course, that's important, but also with their professors. Because I know for myself, like, my tendency is sort of to want to sit in the back of the class and just sort of kind of be anonymous and do the whole learning thing that way, which is fine and can get you noticed if you're like good at the class. But like, it's much quicker just to like go to your professor's office hours and like, don't be, hey, Peanut, chill. And don't be obtrusive, but, like, ask questions, demonstrate that you're curious, and that, your curiosity is sort of what's motivating you, as opposed to, well, I don't know what else. Because, I mean, honestly, I think most professors are very attracted to that. I don't mean, like, in any kind of suggestive way. I don't mean attracted in any kind of a suggestive way. I just mean that, they are interested in more in students and interacting with students who are actually demonstrate some level of interest and curiosity. On the other hand, you shouldn't be fake about it. But, I would imagine that at any institution, there's going to be professors who are cool, who do things that you're interested in. And I think it's very important for any college student to seek those people out and interact with them. So, hello, everybody. Hello to the 6 viewers that I can see sitting in here. I love you. Did you know that? And because I love you, I want to help you. If you're confused about anything, I know the school year is starting up for many, many people right now. Sorry, I got distracted there. And so if you have any questions relevant to sort of the start of school or to anything else, math related or not, even, drop it in chat, okay? I'd love to be able to talk about it with you. Hey, FS Roosta, good to see you again. Undiagnosed ADHD. I kind of think, well, both me and my wife are trying to figure out where my older boy is at. I hope this isn't too personal or boring or whatever. I don't care. But yeah, my older boy, I think, is dealing with some issues around, and like ADHD is like one possible diagnosis for some of these issues. But he's pretty young. He's 11 years old. So there's like a couple things that are keeping us from like pulling the trigger on like, trying to get a full-blown ADHD diagnosis with treatment and that sort of thing. Like we want, like the problem is, like, we want to really make sure that it's ADHD and not something else, because as I understand it, there are other conditions which can look a lot like ADHD and are sometimes misdiagnosed, and that can have really bad effects. Like if you give, for example, and I'm not saying that my kid is bipolar, but if you give like a bipolar kid ADHD meds, it can lead to like a manic meltdown at some point and really fuck over their lives. So stuff like that we like want to be really careful about. On the other hand, like neither myself nor my wife are doctors, are qualified to give a diagnosis, and we know that, giving an ADHD sufferer, that's the right word. If it's the wrong word, I apologize. But giving somebody who's has ADHD, giving them the wrong meds, or rather withholding any treatment at all, this is the point I wanted to get to. Like ignoring it, leaving it undiagnosed, and that sort of thing is also a big hit to their quality of life. So it's a hard one for our family. We're just sort of sitting and trying to observe as much as possible, take in as much information as possible, and eventually maybe try to get a diagnosis from somebody who can really take the time and it knows about like all of these issues around like a possible misdiagnosis of what is in fact bipolar disorder or whatever, or the other kinds of classified mental states of being, of which ADHD and bipolar are but two. But yeah, that's not your problem. But I thought maybe you'd find it interesting. In my experience, ADHD from like friends and things like that who do have diagnosed ADHD and are being treated for it with like medication and stuff like that. Like, yes, their brains work differently, but I think their brains are still highly functional. I mean, they're capable of super great things is what I'm trying to say. So like, I think that there's maybe a jump. There is a leap that is sometimes made. This is just my own somewhat uninformed opinion, so please push back if you disagree. That there is a tendency to want to pathologize ways of thinking that are not typical. And I feel like there has been pushback maybe in the last 10 years, but when I was growing up, maybe, it really did feel that way. That like if somebody's brain worked a little bit differently, so that, maybe they had a hard time sitting for 8 hours a day in a stifling classroom, completely bored out of their earballs, like that there was a problem with them, right? Like they were diseased in some way, and I don't like that. I mean, obviously there are mental conditions and mental states which are like severely antisocial. I mean, like, violent behavior and that sort of thing. But like ADHD, I kind of feel like it's just like the way certain brains are, and I don't think of it as being like a disorder, right? Isn't the last D there disorder? Stand for disorder. But maybe I'm wrong. That sounds stressful. It sounds like your son is in good hands with such well-informed parents. Well, so I mean, this is the big question, right? Like, when are we going to pull the trigger? Because if it is ADHD, like we're subjecting him to, I mean, from what I've heard from other people, that they found so much relief in doing things like like going to school and stuff like that, doing their homework, after they were given treatment. So I don't know. It's very hard for me to say. I say all that after just talking about how I'm suspicious of the pathology. Well, so like in particular, like with especially Asperger stuff these days, I'm not sure if that's still just if that's a credit, whether that term has been discredited yet, but like with autistic people, right? Um, like they think in such interesting ways, right? In my opinion, and I'm not sure. Like, sure, maybe they don't quite fit in with mainstream of society or whatever, but I don't know. They seem to um, just exhibit something that's just a little bit out of the ordinary, and I don't know that it needs to be classified as a pathology. I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, sure, there are very low functioning autistic folks, but there are a lot of high functioning people too. I don't know. This whole thing is I sometimes wonder. I mean, like homosexuality used to be considered a disorder that was worthy of being placed in the DSM. What is that thing called? The something something manual. But it's like the DSM is like a catalog of all of the what are considered to be pathological mental disorders. And homosexuality, up until relatively recently, was considered such a disorder. Which, if it isn't clear, strikes me as utterly abhorrent. Have I seen the documentary Take Your Pills on Netflix? It's mostly about Adderall and similar drugs and the history of such, but it goes into how the medications affect those who take them. Right. Yeah, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Yeah, the DSM, and they keep revising it, which they. I mean, I'm not criticizing that, but it's just kind of interesting to note that in some older versions, no longer the case, but in some older versions of the DSM, homosexuality was listed as a mental disorder. I tend to view most, quote, learning difficulties as rather being teaching difficulties. Not responding to traditional teaching methods doesn't imply a defect in the child, which is what the system often tells you. I mean, the system is constantly sending those signals, right? They're sending the signals all over the place. It's not just to the child, and it's so unfortunate that it is the child at all that takes on those kinds of signals and get that kind of stimulus from a teacher, a person that they're supposed to respect, but also those signals get sent to parents, the other children, the community at large. It's crazy. Yeah, so I completely agree with you. It is a teaching difficulty, right? And in an ideal world, we would have immaculately trained teachers who are super, super smart, not just about like content and things like that, but also about like I don't know, the small little the social ecosystem inside of their classroom, and how that affects a child's development. But of course, this is not the world that we live in, at least not here in the United States, where I'm from right now. You actually tried to get into teaching after graduating. I think that's a very noble profession. On the other hand, well, let me see what you have to say about it. It turns out my ADHD makes it very difficult for me to get organized enough to plan well enough to teach even 12 hours a week. Even at 8 hours, I was struggling. I tend to think of myself as not a very organized person. But, I don't think I have ADHD either. Yeah. And the strictures of particularly, like, I would say high school and elementary school teaching, I think probably do demand a tremendous amount of organization, um, and logistics, that sort of thing. I don't know how they do it, if I'm going to be honest. Yeah, that's tough. But the world could use some good teachers. So if it's something that you think that you would be good at, I think it's like I say, a very noble profession. Okay, how am I going to solve this Euler problem? See, the problem, I have this idea that what I can try to do is rewrite these fractions, like 1/2. Let's see, do I have the Firefox up here? Here it is. Like this 1/2, 1/3, 1/4. Try to rewrite these as fractions of strings of nines, because I think that once when you figure out how many, like the smallest number of nines that you need in order to re-express these fractions, as a fraction whose denominator is a string of nines, I think that gives you the answer. But actually, I'm also thinking that maybe that's not so, because of this example right here, where the repetition doesn't just start right after the decimal point. The repetition starts somewhere deeper in the decimal. Even at 8, the annoying thing is I was good at actually teaching when the workload wasn't that high, but because I couldn't finish the course, I couldn't be qualified to teach in a school. So now, because I can't teach the full amount, the government doesn't want me to teach any amount. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Yeah, see, definitely. Like, I know one of the things that I think help, and please correct me if I'm wrong, okay? This is just me looking from the outside, is that help folks with ADHD is to break activities, like big activities, up into smaller bite-sized pieces, because it seems like ADHD folks are really good at like zipping from one thing to another thing, to going back to the first thing, then maybe doing a third thing, and then going back to the second thing. And they're super talented at that, right? It's like what they're like super good at. But maybe like the strictures again of the school day or whatever prevent a person who's really talented at that from leveraging that particular strength in like a teaching capacity. I find myself so easily distracted all the time while studying, but I think it's more because I failed to teach myself better habits. I don't think it's because I have a chemical deficiency. Right. Yeah, private tutoring or substitute teachers. I mean, I would imagine, Eder, that with a master's degree, you could get a pretty good hourly rate, in depending on what area you live in. You could get a pretty good hourly rate doing tutoring or something like that. Hmm. Yes, money, money. It's a thing. Oh, cool. uh, yeah, I'm jealous. I'm not exactly jealous, but I just like I want to be doing that. Yeah, for sure. I want to be learning about Lie algebras and particle physics and all of that kind of stuff. Um, yeah, for sure. That's cool. Oh, and actually, what I downloaded yesterday, somebody put up some sets of notes for a math book that I'm reading called Spin Geometry. And so I looked around to see if there were any others, and I found something that seemed pretty comprehensive, actually, from a grad student at UT Austin. Oh, cool. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Lie groups are pretty fascinating. And it turns out, Eder, that I didn't know this myself for a long time, even though I was aware of their existence. But it turns out that representations of Lie groups and of Lie algebras and things like that are an important part of the classification of particles in the universe that we live in. Oh, speaking of physics for math peoples, did you see the link I posted near the end of the last stream? I'm not sure. I don't think so. If you could repost it, that'd be great. The course I took didn't link itself too much to physics. It was a pure math. Yeah. I mean, that was definitely my I mean, that characterized basically all of my education from starting in undergrad when I started taking math really seriously. Like, there wasn't too much mention made about physics. I always, of course, like everybody knew that there were immense applications and interactions between math and physics. But yeah, I didn't hear about a lot of that stuff. And I think it wasn't until I got out of grad school that I realized, holy shit, physics is really awesome. Um, I took a quantum mechanics course and it totally blew me away. Uh, and now, after hearing about certain connections, like these types of connections being described, um, between, for example, particle physics and irreducible representations of Lie algebras, I'm like super curious. Well organized notes from an introduction to physics. Matt, let's check these out. A brief introduction to physics for mathematicians. Notes of lectures given at the University of Michigan in 95-96 by Igor Dolgachev. Is this dude No, I'm thinking of a similar name starting with a B, who did some differential geometry. Okay. Let's look at the table of contents. Classical mechanics. Classical mechanics covered in 11 pages. Okay. Conservation laws, Poisson structures, observables and states, operators in Hilbert space, canonical quantization, harmonic oscillator, central potential, the Schrodinger representation, abelian varieties and theta functions, fiber G bundles, gauge fields, Klein-Gordon, Yang-Mills, spinors, Dirac equation, quantization of free fields, path integrals, Feynman diagrams, and quantization of Yang-Mills fields. Well. You should watch the lectures on YouTube by Edward Frankel about the Langlands program. It's all about the link between group theory, number theory, and particle physics. Frankel was a professor, I don't know if he still is, at Berkeley while I was there. And I can't really remember ever seeing him around. I feel like he must have been a busy guy. But there were several students who I knew were students of his. And I also knew that he worked them to the bone. Like, really, yeah. Hey, everybody. If you've got a math question, you can ask here. And it doesn't have to be a highfalutin, sophisticated, super deep math question. Even very simple stuff would be lovely to hear. I actually passed by Andrew Wiles' office twice. Never knocked on the door or went in. Cool. He wrote a book called Love and Math, which is brilliant. I've not read it. I've heard of its existence, but I've never taken a look at it. Maybe I'll check it out. Let's see here. Like, my vision for this channel, just for people that don't know, is that eventually it becomes a place where people can ask for math help and get math help, either from me or from other people, so that there doesn't have to be so much struggling and confusion. And that struggling and confusion can take place at any level of mathematics, right? And there's nothing wrong with having that struggling or that confusion. Math is hard. I think what is wrong, though, I think the mistake you can make is to just be okay with that confusion, with that struggle, instead of trying to overcome it. And I'm hoping this place becomes a community where we can relieve that burden from students. Why is the central limit theorem true? Can I say concisely why it's true? I've proved it once in my life. I mean, not an original proof. I mean, I've read through the proof and understood the proof. I think the approach that I learned was through what? Oh my goodness, what are they called? Oh wow, I've forgotten. In any case, the proof of the central limit theorem, I think that I studied, was maybe from Fourier point of view. Like, there's a way of doing it through the Fourier transform, which is really cool, where you see the buildup of like you can model in some sense the sampling distributions with increasing values of n and that sort of thing, and you can see on the other side the distribution coming through, the central limit, the normal distribution, right? Another common mistake, certainly in American education, is to assume that such a struggle is unusual, or that people who are, quote, good at math don't struggle. Yes, I agree. I agree with you completely. And it feels like there's a real quick tendency to sort of like attribute not understanding something immediately with some kind of personal failure or something like that. Because I feel like, well, I don't know. There's probably a lot of reasons why this is so. But I think I don't want to be too judgmental or too much of a boomer, because I kind of think this is a boomer take. And let's be honest, I'm 42 years old, so I'm firmly in that boomer category right now. But like, my belief, my sort of anecdotal experience is suggesting to me that there's been an increasing increasing emphasis in our culture and our society on immediate gratification, as opposed to, in contrast to, sort of longer term gains that can be made through, like, a bit of struggling, a bit of like crying in the corner, weeping because you don't understand something and feeling like, you'll never understand. Where that kind of thing, it just sounds wrong and terrible, and nobody wants to undertake that. Why would you? You'd have to be crazy. But I think that there's a lot of fulfillment that can be gained through things that require a lot of struggle and require some pain to be experienced, some deep-seated insecurities that you might have to be sort of brought to the fore, that sort of thing. But this seems not compatible with this trope in my head, right? That I have about society, which is that we're sort of always seeking immediate gratification and stuff. Ramanujan failed undergrad multiple times. I believe it. He seemed like quite the neuroatypical individual to me. So yeah, maybe schooling just wasn't compatible with the way that his brilliant mind worked, right? Anyway, if you have a math question, drop it in chat. I at some point am going to need to run the experiment. What experiment? The experiment in which I take a bunch of viewers and this channel into the just chatting section. This is a transition that needs to happen at some point. Like, I love everybody that's here and that's been hanging out for the stream and stuff like that. But I think in order to grow this thing, at some point it has to go from science and technology category to the just chatting category. This is my theory. There's probably other things that I can do on my end to help with this as well. Like, I'm supposed to be better at like dropping the link to the stream in all sorts of different forums so that people will come. But I'm kind of, if I'm going to be honest, I'm kind of allergic to that stuff. I don't really enjoy doing that. But that's probably a bias that I have that I should get over. How does one deal with 1/6? Because the problem with 1/6 is that the repeating part of 1/6 doesn't happen directly after the decimal point. So sure, I could multiply by 10, right? And move the 1 over. And then I could reduce the fraction or something like that. Or write it as a mixed fraction. You would rather hope that the sci-tech category continues to grow, personally. Okay, see you later, Ederlofer. Yeah, I would hope that too, for sure. But I think that like a good strategy, even for that goal, is to have some cross-pollination with the more populated categories. Like, I would imagine that the sci-tech category attracts, people like the people I'm seeing in this chat right now, who are already super interested in math and science and stuff like that, that are interested in understanding like the central limit theorem or mathematical physics and really deep stuff, right? Like extremely deep stuff. Like, I think we all understand. Most people in this world have never heard of Lie algebras. This is just not this is not the kind of thing people are talking about at parties, right? We all understand that. On the other hand, many people do have very profound struggles with math and such, like in school, in the context of being a student. And sort of what I'm wanting to do is to sort of get people roped in. Maybe not to the point where they're like curious about Lie algebras or anything like that and their representations, but rather just so that they feel like they have a place where they can get help, which will, dissolve some of that confusion that they might have about math. And hopefully as a consequence, make them primed for understanding math and what it is at sort of a deeper level. Yeah, I'm on the Knowledge Fellowship Discord. Somebody, I think, a representative, I don't know quite how that thing works, but a representative sometimes stops by in here and mentions it. I've not looked at what it takes to sort of become a member of their fellowship, but it definitely seems like a cool thing. But like I said, I think that at some point, when the channel gets, enough regular viewers and things like that, that a transition into the just chatting category. See, the problem with the just chatting category right now is that it's like impossible to be seen, right? You are just buried. There's like thousands of potentially channels in there, many of whom have like 1 viewer, 2 viewer, 3 viewer, etc. So, but with maybe 15, 20, 30 viewers, or even more if that's possible, I think you could pick up here or there some folks in that just chatting section. And something might snowball if there's interest, right? If there's interest out there in the general public, not just among us math nerds, and I say that very lovingly, then I think things will get better. I think things would grow for sure. Discoverability is basically 0 unless you pick up a raid from someone. Okay. Hey, love your content. I'm sure you'll get more viewers. Oh, thanks, Non-Chi. I've been trying, for sure. I don't know exactly what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong. It's all just experiments and stuff at this point, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. But yeah, the model that I have in my head for how this thing evolves eventually has this channel sitting in just chatting. For example, I found your channel because you hosted Physics O, then he hosted you back. Right. I need to do more of that. At the end of streams, remind me, somebody, if you're around at the end of a stream or something, and I say I'm going to be logging off soon or taking a break or whatever, just remind me. I'll just raid somebody and I'll do that. And I've definitely the reason why I've gotten like a 30 viewer stream is because of Physics O raiding me, right? So I get that. Like you can have huge spikes because of these raids. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But I still think like the big content creator, the thing which will create content for a channel like this, are probably, students, high school students, college students who are having trouble with math. Kind of like I would imagine what goes on in the Ask Math subreddit, as you say. Hello, Terminal Pig. Good to see you. Where there's questions asked and answered. I think to have that in real time and to be able to talk to somebody face to face or interact with other people in the chat in real time, I feel like is a space that I don't know has is a space. There's room, in other words, for a channel like this to flourish. This is my hypothesis that I'm trying to test. So, yeah. Because there's no shortage. There's no shortage of confusion about math, right? We all know this. And with respect to the science and technology category, a bigger channel, with hundreds of viewers, or maybe even thousands of viewers, I think can't hurt. Okay, I would imagine that channels in science and technology would benefit from that, and ultimately increase the popularity of this sort of thing. Yeah, I gotta raid people. Someone who I tutor made a post about me in Ask Math. Okay, I'm gonna look at Ask Math right now. I don't know if I've ever been in that subreddit, if I'm honest. Okay, so this place is pretty busy, huh? Yeah, see, a lot of these questions that are being asked in this are, rather elementary, I would say, for probably the bulk of the folks in this channel, right? I did that wrong. There are several math subreddits you can make a post about your channel in. Consider making a post about your channel in R Math and R Learn Math. Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'm just afraid of, R Math I know well. I don't know if they have a policy around this. Some subreddits definitely do have a policy around self-promotion and such, which I understand completely, right? You don't want to be mucking up a subreddit in that way. Yeah, there's also our cheat at math homework. Name is a bit of an exaggeration. Yeah, so I think this is this would be the unethical route to success, which is to be a homework cheating Twitch stream where we just churn out answers over and over again. I would definitely like to avoid that outcome for sure. And actually, I think like the Twitch platform is much more amenable to not having to fall on, simply being an answer or homework solution dispensary, because you can have an interaction with other people, like a real-time interaction. Obviously Reddit, you have interactions with other people, but it's stifled a little bit, right? By not being able to see the person, not being able to hear the person, typically. So, like I say, I feel like there's room here for a channel like this. What are my favorite science-related content creators? Let's see. You know who I really love watching is Sean Carroll. Sean Carroll, he's a cosmologist and general kind of physics guru type. He, I think, is a professor at Caltech, and he has a YouTube channel that is fantastic. Right now, he's doing a series called The Big Questions or something like that, or he has some series. He has maybe 20 or 25 videos, long form videos. I mean, like hour and a half long, 2 hours, in which he's giving lectures on various big ideas in physics. And they aren't just like, that was called The Biggest Ideas in the Universe. Sounds right. I really like Sean Carroll a lot. I think he's extremely, he's very talented at communicating these ideas, in my opinion, in a way that's not just purely for the layperson, but actually digs into some of the depth. You see, I always have had a complaint, or I always feel like there is this tendency to fetishize, especially in this current society. Didn't used to be like this when I was a young boy, but to fetishize science, right? To treat it like an adornment, or like an ideology. You know what I mean? And I'm not exactly criticizing that, right? Except that I think what that often looks like is people examining issues around science and not really ever digging into it with any kind of depth. And so this leads to all sorts of misunderstandings, all sorts of like the appearance of just like mere superficiality, right? It to me does not reflect the true nature of these disciplines, in which, like, in order to get anything done, or to really understand something, it requires tremendous work. And reading a book on something like, I don't know, quantum field theory for idiots or something like that, you know what I mean, right? These kinds of pop sci books that they don't really provide enough depth, in my opinion. But I feel like Sean Carroll does a really magnificent job of sort of threading that needle. He does not coddle his viewers at all. On the other hand, I feel like if a viewer is willing to put some serious thought into what he's saying and maybe like slow down, pause the videos, think about what he's saying, and really try to take it on board, that there's a lot of depth, there's a lot of stuff there that can be learned and consumed and whatever. Like popular science, nothing wrong with enjoying that material, but at some point you have to dive into the details. I mean, I agree. Like if you say you love science, and there's like that Facebook group, I fucking love science. You know what I'm talking about? If you really love science, then it seems like there should be some kind of compulsion or curiosity that causes you or compels you to go deeper. into the subject. Instead, it feels like very much like a badge or an adornment that people like to talk about during polite conversation at a cocktail party or something like that. People throw science into their arguments as some kind of universal magical appeal to authority. I agree with that as well. Absolutely. And I also think that one of the deranged consequences of that in our society has been a move away from philosophical issues because of the perception that, well, philosophy is not empirical, So, and it's not, it's just a bunch of gobbledygook. I'm going with science, that sort of thing. Obviously, I love science. I like the method that it uses to peer into reality and stuff like that. But I think there needs to be some acceptance about its limitations. Like, science might be the most powerful force that we have for expanding human knowledge in ways that make material impacts on people's lives. Maybe. Maybe that's arguable. I don't know. I think that might be arguable, but there's no doubt that science has a profound effect on our everyday lives. On the other hand, I don't think that means that every problem that arises, particularly in society, can be solved with science alone. Hello, people. If you've got a math question, why not ask? Right up there. See that? Got a math question. Got a math question. Ask here. I'd like to help you. I really would. Because I love you. So if you're confused about something, if you're curious about something, these are great things to talk about in here. If you wouldn't be a math professor, I've always said that I wish, frankly, when I got into undergrad and was deciding between being on my major, it was really down to two things for me at that time. It was math or physics. So I very often think about the proverbial road not taken there, which is physics. Because, I'm jealous of my physics colleagues that know so much about this stuff. And it's part of the reason why I'm wanting to catch up and learn some of the big ideas in physics now. And that for me right now, I think means the next step I'm supposed to be doing is probably classical mechanics. Crow says, why is 0 factorial 1? Great question. 0 factorial is 1 because, there's a couple reasons. First reason, 0 factorial is 1 because that's what makes the recurrence relation or the recursive definition of the factorial work. So you've probably seen before that, one way of defining n factorial. You can't see any of this. So one sec. I've got fancy things for this. Dot cam and face. Okay, cool. So you've probably seen before this definition that n factorial is equal to n minus 1 factorial times n, right? And this allows you to determine the values of n factorial using previous values of n factorial, right? Previous factorials. But like all recursive processes, it has to ground out somewhere, right? And the way that we do that is by defining 0 factorial to be 1. That gives the right answer. It's not very pleasing. It's not very satisfying. But that's one way of thinking about it. You just make this definition by more or less fiat, and this then becomes the convention. The other reason, the other reason that's occurring to my mind right now, before I get to the really knockdown, drag out reason, is the following: it works. It just works. It's like the right thing to do in many contexts. But maybe that's not pleasing either. Like, for example, when you're writing down the formula for Taylor series, right? What is it? F of x is equal to the sum from n equals 0 to infinity of, what is it again? The nth derivative of f at 0, right? Or it's at a more general point, right? Like c or something, right? A center of the Taylor series divided by n factorial times x minus c to the nth power, right? Like what you really want there in that zero term, you want that to be 1. Okay. But probably the best reason is the following, which is that you can make the following kind of definition. So n factorial is the number of ways of ordering n objects. I think this is the best reason. You can't see that so well, but there it is. If you make this definition, you capture all the values of n factorial that you want, like for n equal to 1, 2, 3, etc. But it also means that 0 factorial is the number of ways of ordering 0 objects. And how many ways are there to order 0 objects? There's one way to order 0 objects. See? Here's 0 right here on the table. There's 0 objects. That's the only ordering of those 0 objects there that's possible. You're not seeing any of that, are you? Here's 0 objects right there on the table. 0 objects there. Excuse the pen marks and stuff. How many ways are there to order those 0 objects? There's one way. One way only. Is that satisfying, Crow? You can interrogate me and see if you're unhappy or not. Hmm. 4/6. So to see, okay, wait, I need a better example. What is, I need to just look at some of these other numbers. What does that look like? Right, so that's 9/99ths. Okay, so how about 1/12? So how can I see that 0.08333333, that the repeating digit chunk of that is of length 1? Like if I look at 10/12ths or 100/12ths, For instance, the other day on Twitch, someone commented that some algorithm wasn't practically O1 because, quote, there is somewhat of a law in physics, unquote, that made it so. The thing is, they were correct in their diagnosis of the algorithm, but there is no such law as they attested. In this way, science is debased into just a rhetorical advice. Yeah, exactly. The debasement of science, I think, is a very good way of saying that. And I mean, in this way, it's sort of like not unlike, the religious compulsion to like appeal to God or something like that. But maybe that's a stretch. I don't know. Ooh, this little thing is better if it's projected on my keyboard. So, let's see. With 1/12, I need to somehow see that I'm supposed to multiply that by 100. Rip off the fractional part of that, which leaves 4/12, and then say to myself, I can write that as something over 9. Yeah, as someone who grew up in a religious family, I would agree. Yeah. Whoa, look at 1/13. 0.076923. 0.76923. 0.76923. So this would be 76,923 over 999,999. But how do I decide? Well, whatever. To think about it. Hello, viewers. Hello, chat. Hello, Twitch users. If you've got a question about anything, particularly if it's about math, why not ask it in here? I want to help you because I love you. It's really true. Seven one four 2857. So here's an occasion where I'm supposed to multiply by 10. No, by 10? Yeah. What's going on there? So the point is, if I multiply 1/14 by 10, then I should be able to represent 10/14. I need to be able, yeah. So it's 714,285 divided by 9999999. I'll be right back. 1 sec. Hello, I'm back. Oh, I don't know what Kalman filters are. Let's see here. All right, so I'm looking at this knowledge fellowship thing. After becoming nominated, oh my goodness. Okay, so this is a very long-term thing here. Or not very long-term. That's wrong. The process takes 2 to 3 months to join. There's just a little process to become a featured EDU streamer. The first part is to be nominated. This process is completely anonymous and can be done using a form. After becoming nominated, the founders and committee members will check out your content to make sure you'd be a great fit in TKF. This process takes 2 to 3 months. What do we look like? Or look for, rather. The streamer should have educational content. The streamer ideally has a non-toxic community. The content should include some dedicated time for education each week. VODs must be turned on for all viewers. Stream frequency and history must be somewhat consistent and healthy. There's not one type of education we are looking for. TOS must be followed, and content quality can be taken into consideration. Sure. I should do this introduction thing. Tech and math. Tawans, working on a comp sci degree. Also stream physics, math, and data analysis. Hey, does anyone in here run just Linux on their PC? Yes. I'm building one for my BF, specifically for machine learning. We want to make sure there's not any hardware issues. And that the build should be fine. I know there's NVIDIA GPU driver issues, but we want it CUDA capable, but we'll decide on that later, which is why no GPU is listed. If anyone has any experience or input, well, I've never built a machine learning machine. But yeah. I use Linux Mint. I haven't really been experimenting with distros though. So like can't really tell you what's good about Linux Mint over anything else. or what's bad about it. I have no idea. I just know that it does the things that I would like it to do, I guess. It's kind of weird. The channels in this Discord are divided into life sciences, physical science, okay, practical education, and then tech and math. It seems odd to me to lump together tech and math. So, like, you have people that are building keyboards in the same channel as I would guess math centric, more math centric channels. Okay. Stream tech and dev. Oh, I see. It's for questions around like technologies to use. Hey, can I ask? What do people prefer in general? Do they like the whole tablet thing, as popularized by the Khan Academy dude, where a person writes on a tablet? Or what about like paper with a document camera? Tablet's better than paper? Okay. I kind of say I'm probably, yeah, this is a boomer take. I just know it. I kind of prefer paper. I'm gonna be honest. Yeah, you can just scroll up on tablet. Yeah. Yeah. You have to find stuff. It's true. Uh huh. Has gaps. I guess I just wanted to be able to recreate like a blackboard or a whiteboard, whatever. Um, that kind of setup without actually having a physical whiteboard or blackboard behind me. Although there's nothing wrong with that either. Like maybe that would be cool. Like I know that's what the physics O dude does, right? He's got a cool setup like in his garage or something where he's got a blackboard behind him and he sort of plasters it with symbols and stuff that I don't understand. But I wish I did, believe me. Okay. Oh, yes, it is. We have all that here. I have some friends in Southern California, in Santa Monica, who are commenting on that they're seeing. I'm in Northern California, and we've had big time wildfires up here right now. And for the last few days, the sky has just been filled with smoke, and there's been a light layer of ash just covering everything outside. But apparently it's happening in Southern California as well. I'm not as up to date on what their wildfire situation is down there, but yeah, California's burning again. This is crazy. Hey, if anybody's got any questions about math, just ask. Just ask. Just ask. They are fine. They like being inside. Yeah. Right. So this problem. So for those that aren't keeping track, I'm going to is my computer science friend going to stream too? I don't know. If he does, I'll let you all know. Yeah, he was curious about whether machine learning and random matrix theory had a Twitch channel that was talking about that stuff. And I told him, I asked my chat, they say no. He's like, oh, an opportunity. So there aren't any. Well, so he's not really a computer science person. He's actually, I think his status right now is a math student. He's a PhD in math, I believe. I don't know. I don't know exactly what his status is at the moment. But he knows a lot. He's a super smart guy. And he knows a lot about this machine learning stuff and random matrix theory and whatever that means. So it would be cool if he started streaming on chat. Streaming on Twitch, I mean. I know how to talk. Does getting a PhD mean you're smart or dedicated? I think certainly probably depending on a couple of other fields. In general, a PhD is a pretty good signal that the person that you're dealing with is at least smart relative to their field, more broadly. But I do think that there's probably something to the idea that some PhDs are easier to get than others. PhDs in some fields are easier than PhD in other fields. I think that's probably true. And by the way, math is really fucking hard. I don't know if you're aware of that. But it's also fun. When you go to grad school, did you ever feel like, wow, I can't believe that guy is also here? Wait, what is that guy? Is that guy a smart guy, knowledgeable guy, or is that guy like like that dumbass? No. Well, I didn't feel that. I think everybody in my grad school class was really smart and really interested in mathematics. No, I would not. I would not call anybody a dumbass there. No. I would imagine that's the case for most grad school programs in math. You have to have something. You have to have something to get in there. But yeah, uh, in fact, for me, it was kind of the opposite. If anybody was that dumbass, no, I would say I was firmly middle of the pack. Uh, I was pretty middle of the pack. But my point is that when I got there, I just sort of saw kids my age, younger even sometimes, who were just had so much knowledge, had so much training, had so much education already in math, that I am a little ashamed to say it now, but I felt demoralized. When you see some of the people who also get their PhDs, you kind of feel like you don't have to be smart. You just need drive. Every single person that I went to grad school with, I would characterize as being very smart. I cannot believe that anybody got out of that math program with a PhD who wasn't both smart and driven. Really. You meet really cool people in grad school who share your passion and interest in the subject that you're studying. And maybe for that reason, that's probably one of the big reasons why grad school is, in my opinion, a very worthwhile experience. I transferred from a community college to a 4-year college. Unfortunately, this college is extremely difficult to transfer credit to, so I'll need to retake a lot of basic classes. Yeah, that sucks. I'm sorry. In California, they have a program now where they streamline that process of transferring community college credit. And they place the onus on like the UCs and our other state system, which is the CSU, to sort of make those credits transferable. Resultingly, in order to graduate in the standard 4 years, I'll pretty much have to take the bare minimum of math classes. Would you recommend taking another year in undergrad to get more exposure to higher level classes, or would you just go straight to grad school? I'm concerned that I would be unprepared if I didn't, but I'm already in my mid-20s too, so I already feel behind. I guess it depends on where you're at what level your you feel in terms of your mathematical sophistication. I would imagine that you've probably taken things like the calculus sequence, maybe some other classes like linear algebra or maybe differential equations. These are typically the lower division courses. Maybe these days they also have something called discrete math. Those are the sort of lower division courses that I would imagine are offered at a community college. But where you really want to focus your studies, obviously, if you're planning on going to grad school in math, are in the higher upper division classes, like the big ones being the big ones that almost every math program will feature are abstract algebra and real analysis. And then you'll probably be taking some other courses that of interest to you, like be it topology or probability or other little niche things in math that aren't somehow included in those in the sort of that somehow are not required of every single undergraduate math program. So things like complex analysis, even though they seem fundamental to me, really are not a requirement. But I would I think so. I think I've said it before. Probably the most important thing. Okay, first of all, age is not the most important thing to getting into grad school. So if your concern is that your age would prevent you from getting into grad school, I would say maybe put that concern to bed to some extent. Personally, that's what I would say. The other part of it is that there are things that you can do absolutely while an undergraduate that can increase your chances of getting into grad school. And I've been repeatedly saying on streams that I think that the number one thing that you can do, and the piece of advice like I give to my own children, is that you should try to make relationships, form healthy relationships with your professors. That is, establish yourself as a curious and interested student in what they're doing, because those kinds of students are the ones that professors write great letters of recommendation for. You might, even if the opportunity arises, check out like research experiences that professors might be offering to their undergrad students. It's not unheard of. In fact, there's an entire program called Research Experiences for Undergrads, REUs, which you might want to look into. These are summer programs typically in which you travel to some other campus and you do some research that's accessible to undergrads. I remember when I was in grad school, I went to assist. I wasn't running an REU, but I went to assist, and I wasn't participating as an undergrad. I was assisting with an REU on knot theory, and that was really cool. You had all of these eager undergrads who were actually, honest to goodness, doing some research in knot theory, and I think it was a really good experience for them. I saw one of those students actually transfer to Berkeley at some point. I think he was a student. The RU was happening at CSU Chico, and he was a student there learning math. He did an RU, and he was able to transfer into Berkeley. And I don't know that he ultimately went into grad school at Berkeley, but he went into grad school somewhere good, if I recall correctly. Like grades are one thing, coursework is one thing, but I think that there are like letters of recommendation from your professors, and those kinds of things like research experiences, I think probably help a lot. I don't know that I would take another year to get more exposure. I really don't. When you get into grad school, what's typical anyway is that there are graduate level courses which go over things like on real analysis or abstract algebra to get you caught up and at the level where you're supposed to be. They're not remedial classes. That's not the right thing to say. They're done at a very high level, sophisticated level. But I don't think you should spend an additional year. I don't think that's a good idea. If grad school is something you want to do, then you should be trying to kill it right now in your undergraduate education, trying your best to do that, and establishing relationships with your professors, and maybe looking for opportunities for like research experience. There might be something I'm forgetting there, but that seems like a good skeletal path toward grad school to me. And also, you don't necessarily even need to know what it is you want to study in grad school, which is a funny thing, other than just math, right? Like some people think you go into grad school with like a research problem even in mind. It's not true. It's not true. Some people also think that you need to have published stuff before you get into grad school. Also not true. Okay. A lot of these things are decided on in like the first years of your graduate school experience. So for example, I remember when I got into grad school, I was super interested in representation theory. But at some point I started getting much more interested in topology and geometry. which are not totally unrelated by any means, but it was kind of a big switch, right? I had ambitions maybe in my first year for looking into research into representation theory, of which there was no shortage at Berkeley of professors who could do that. But at some point, for whatever reason, I mean, I think it's, for me, it was like a function of the classes that I took. Hey, thank you, Interstellar Matt. Look at my fancy Twitch alert thing. I'm extremely entertained by it. Hi, Interstellar Matt. Thanks for following. I forgot what I saw. Yeah. So the it was like a function of the classes that I had taken, right? The personalities in the research group, like the people that I liked hanging out with and talking with and all of that kind of stuff. These were things that, pushed me toward eventually a more topological / geometrical, geometric field. Yeah. Anytime, Terminal Pig. I love you. If anybody's got any math questions about anything, if you got any curiosities, you got any confusions or anything like that, stick them in chat and we can talk about them. Or if you like lurking, you can lurk too. You can hang out. I hear there are a pair of hurricanes headed for the Gulf Coast. Is that? Making landfall this week. All right, I'm going to work on this Euler thing. So what's happening here? How do I distinguish, or how do I get these lengths? The category of storm. Is that what they mean? Yeah, they're calling them tropical systems.
Would you believe a few simple changes in your diet can drastically reduce your joint pain and arthritis?
Is that right? But I have neither joint pain nor arthritis. Why do I use Yahoo search and not Google or DuckDuckGo? Yahoo is the default on Firefox, and I just haven't bothered to change it. Is it bugging you? I'm not accustomed to using Firefox, but I'm going to use Firefox as sort of my on-stream browser so that nothing weird gets put on stream that might cause me to get in trouble or whatever. Settings? Preferences, they call it. Home. DuckDuckGo, should I use that? DuckDuckGo.com. search. I don't know what any of these things mean. Okay. So then what happens if I open a new tab? Oh, it's DuckDuckGo. Recommended by Pocket. What the fuck is Pocket? Remove section. Highlights. We're going to remove that section. Yeah. Hello, everybody. If somebody's got a question about anything, be it math related or not, be it simple, be it sophisticated, whatever, try sticking it in chat. We might be able to talk about it. That might be fun. I am still trying to figure out what I'm going to do about cases like this. Well, I've never heard of Sear X before. Oh, I got directed to Swag Bucks. Privacy respecting meta search engine. My kid is wigging out over Minecraft. I don't. I have to confess ignorance on that as well. People set up their own instances. That's interesting. Why use a private instance? Seems like a good question to me. Okay, wait, I have to close the door. Yeah, why would one use a private instance? Public instances are open to everyone who has access to its URL. Usually they're operated by unknown parties. Private instances can be used by a select group of people. It is, for example, a group of friends or a company that can be accessed through a VPN. Also, it can be single user. Also, it can be single user one which runs on the user's laptop. What's the difference between a field and a vector space? So, well, vector spaces have, as part of the data which defines them, a field. So there are lots of let me just give you some examples of fields, okay? There's lots of them. Let me get a clean piece of paper. If I had a tablet, it would just be clicking a button, wouldn't it? I don't have any clean paper. Oh, yeah, I have clean paper down here. Oh, and let me do this thing where I get rid of all these fancy things. This one. So they are fundamentally different objects. I mean, they are related to one another in the following sense, that vector spaces use a field as in their definition, right? So people will talk about a K vector space, V, where K is a field. And this is where we get into things like, so what are some examples of fields? So probably the most familiar one to everybody is R. This is the real numbers. Probably the next most common example that's talked about are complex numbers. But there's also fields like Q, very important field, rational numbers. And there are even more exotic fields like things denoted ZP, the so-called p-adic numbers. There are finite fields as well. So all of these are infinite fields in the sense that they have infinitely many elements in them. But then you have fields that look like Z mod PZ. This is a field. Oh, sorry. And P here is a prime in both of these with P elements. I don't know if these symbols mean anything to you. Eventually, when you learn math, you learn about this stuff. But these are all examples of fields. And you can define a vector space structure using these as these things here play the role of the scalars in a vector space. Now, fields are of interest in and of themselves. You've probably heard about field theory. You might have heard about like Galois theory. That's the study of these fields in and of themselves. But a very common construction is to take a field, use that as a sort of the system of scalars for defining a vector space. So you might have heard of like real vector spaces or complex vector spaces, etc. Right? So how to say? It turns out that typically vector spaces in finite dimensions look like, I don't know, like vectors whose entries are the field elements. Yeah, the field that's specified are what define the scalars exactly. And fields, like I don't want to write down the full definition of field or a vector space. I kind of get the feeling you probably have a text there, which you can look at to see that definition. Fields have a commutative addition and a commutative multiplication, which interact in nice ways. That is, has like associativity, commutativity, has distributivity and that sort of thing, has identity elements, has inverses, at least for the non-zero elements. All of these properties are what define a field. And then you have a vector space structure. Now, what's interesting about the vector space structure is that it requires an extra bit of data, which is how the scalars interact with the vector, right? The vectors. There's a vector addition notion, right? But then there is a scalar multiplication notion. And the scalars for scalar multiplication come from the vector field. Or what? Come from the field, my bad. I said vector field. Yeah. Yeah, so there's a big difference between them, and you shouldn't get confused about them. They should feel very different to you. These feel like numbers to me. These things feel like numbers. Fields feel like numbers to me. Vector spaces feel like bigger, multidimensional, more than just numbers. sorry. I think yeah. This should be QP. I think that's the more standard notation. In fact, I don't even think that's notation for the p-adic integers at all. Anyway. Cool. All right. If anybody's got any questions, just drop them in chat. We can talk. Yeah, so 1/6. Now, if I was to try to write 1/6 as something over a string of 9s, 2 9. I mean, it would. Like 1/6 is the same as 10/6, which is the same as 1 plus 4/6, which is the same as 1 plus 6/9. So that's 6/9 that I'm really concerned about, that I want to know. So what is it that's happening there? I'm writing it as an integer. I'm writing a multiple, a power of 10 multiple of 1/6 as an integer plus something over a string of 9s. Like 1/7 I can see right away, just from its, well, because I have the decimal. So like in terms of an algorithm, the G, so the least common multiple. This is probably boring. Maybe I should play a video game or something. Should I do that? All right. I'm going to subject you to my bad Slay the Spire play, okay? My very bad Slay the Spire play. Don't be discouraged, though, from asking questions if you have any, please. Let's see. Do I have Slay the Spire? Window capture. Create new one. Do. Slay the Spire. Is it coming up? Uh-oh, it doesn't seem to want to come up. I have trouble capturing things. Like, I can't capture Chrome windows, for example, in OBS. Oh, wait, it's there. I see it. Wait a minute. Where? What? How did this happen? I see it back there. Oh, maybe I already had a window defined or something? I have all sorts of windows here, don't I? I'm going to get rid of this. Well, yeah, I'm going to get rid of that one. Sorry, people. I don't know what I'm doing, okay? I didn't rename any of my things coherently, so it's all just sort of mishmash. Okay. There we are. And I can move this one. No. How can I get to this one? Ugh. Okay. There we go. I'm figuring it out, guys. Okay, I'm figuring it out. Now I want to make it bigger. All right. I did win the last run I did of this game. So what character should we play? I'm on Ascension 11. This is my worst character, this ironclad dude. I'm very bad with this dude. Silent, I'm on 14. Defect is 12 and Watcher's 13. I want to make this like bigger or something. I don't know what's happening. Hopefully that's okay. All right, I'm going to try the Silent. This guy throws knives and stuff and poisons people. So we'll have to see. It's also very fragile. I think Silent has a reputation for being the most difficult character to use. Uh-oh. I'm getting frozen video in my I guess I need a better graphics card or something. This is not good. It's not rendering on my desktop. Although I see that it's rendering on stream. All right. Let me see if I can fix this issue. I thought my computer was pretty capable enough at least of dealing with this, but maybe not. Hey, if anybody's got any math questions, I'm just fiddling around with Slay the Spire because I'm feeling bored. But what I really want to do is talk with you all about math or about anything else that you might want to talk about or have questions about. Not that I'm an authority on any of that stuff, except for maybe math. I know some math. Sure, we'll see what we can do with that. We'll kill this. That is not necessary. I don't know what's going on anymore. Okay. Okay, now it's rendering on my desktop. Okay, but it's a little bit slow. As someone who only knows algebra, can I jump into real analysis? Sure. I mean, real analysis, depending on the course, be careful.